Good morning. Welcome to Leadership Live with Anton Gunn. And today we're talking about how to fix your toxic workplace culture. And I'm really excited to have this conversation because I know it's a conversation that is on the top of mind of so many people. The reason why I say I know it's on the top of mind of so many people, I can tell you now, it's on the top of mind of most journalists today. I actually use a Google alert system to track how many times the words toxic workplace or toxic workplace culture shows up in the news on a regular basis. And I can tell you without a shadow of doubt, over the last 6 months, I have seen a 400% increase in the usage of the term toxic workplace in news stories. Like headline after headline after headline, people talking about a toxic workplace. Sometimes it's stories about lawsuits where employees have filed legal lawsuits stating that there's a toxic, hostile workplace that is mistreating them. And there's a few famous lawsuit cases that I know we've all heard, like Ellen DeGeneres, who lost her show because of a lot of reasons, but one of them was that she was keeping a toxic workplace culture. The other one was a lawsuit about Fox Sports, where Skip Bayless, who is an on-air personality that a lot of people know and love and hate at the same time, was accused of creating a toxic workplace environment. Now, it's not just for the headlines and for the legal field that we're hearing this term toxic workplace culture. We're hearing it in everyday society. We're hearing employees talk about it. I actually have a video called The 5 Signs That You Might Be in a Toxic Workplace Culture. It is growing by 1,000 views every month. I mean, literally 1,000 people are watching this video. And then not only are they watching it, they're commenting on what they see in the video. So toxic workplace culture is definitely on the rise. Now, what I want to do here is I'm going to give you 5 strategies to fix your toxic workplace culture, but I want to make sure you understand what it looks like. What are some of the signs and symptoms that you might be seeing? So one of those signs and symptoms is that you have leaders who are burnt out, that your leaders are exhausted and they're burnt out. The second aspect of this is that you have an HR department that employees don't trust. Like when I say don't trust, let me give you this quick example. I know of a large organization, a large healthcare organization to be exact, where there was a manager who was doing all kinds of bad behaviors to employees on the team, saying things that might be racist or sexist or bigoted or biased, just really demeaning and demoralizing to the workforce. So one of the employees decided that they were going to go and tell on that supervisor to HR. They were going to go to file a report. So they literally left their work area, went down to the HR office, sat in the lobby, asked to speak to someone. They went and sat with a person in employee relations. Now, this person's job title, their job is to relate to employees, employee relations. I think they probably should change the name of this place to employer relations, because this is what happened. That employee went in with documentation of the behavior of this manager and what they were doing. And that employee took 30 minutes to explain all what was going on and wanted to file a grievance or report or whatever it was. And that employee was thanked, their hand was shaken, and they got out of the office and they went back to their work area. But do you know before they could even get back to their work area, this employee relations person had already called the manager on the phone and told the manager everything that the employee said that the manager was doing in an effort to protect the manager, or at least try to give the manager a heads up that your people are filing a report. Well, I want you to know that's why people don't trust HR. That's why HR gets a bad reputation, because you're supposed to be representing the employees of the organization, but we all know the truth that HR really represents the employer. They represent the company. Their job is to manage risk, to mitigate risk, to keep people from getting in trouble. So that's another sign of a toxic workplace culture, is where people don't trust HR. A third sign is you see a decrease in productivity, that people are finding their way to look like they're working, but they're not really working. There's a new term for it. I can't remember it right now, but it's like busy work, but not really busy. I had a college teammate that was like that when I played football, that he looked like he was knocking the heck out of somebody, but he wasn't really trying. He was just trying to make a bunch of noise. Well, employees do that at work. They pretend to look busy. They got these intense looks on their face, and they're banging on their keyboard, and they look like they're working hard, but they're not really working hard at all. They might be working hard looking for a job, but they're not really working hard on the work that they were hired to do, that you hired them to do. That's another sign of a toxic workplace. And here's another sign. I want to give you one more, and I think it's really important to lay out this sign because it's one that we all can visibly recognize, is that there are organizations that have high turnover rate, like 40 or 50%. Now, let me break it down so you can understand. Imagine you lead a team of 10 people and you hired all 10 people and y'all were clicking on all cylinders. But in a 12-month period, 5 of your 10 people have either quit, taken another job, or just outright gone somewhere else to work or moved to a new department. You've lost 50% of your people. That is signs of a toxic workplace culture. Now, there are lots of others. And if you go back and look at any of my blogs at antongunn.com/blog, you can read about more of those signs of toxic workplace culture, because I've been documenting this for a while. You can go and search Anton Gunn, 5 signs that you're in a toxic workplace culture, and I'll lay it out. One other one that I didn't mention is communication, or lack thereof communication. We see these signs everywhere, and it is impacting organizations, not just from a general morale sense, but there's an economic impact to toxic workplace culture. I did a research study this past summer that laid out what this is costing organizations. That if you have, 500 employees in your organization, a toxic workplace culture could be costing you about $2.4 million a year. That's just with 500 employees. If you got 5,000 employees, that number jumps to over 24 million. And if you add it all up and you think about the entire workplace, when it comes to disengagement that I mentioned earlier, or just straight up turnover, this kind of mistreatment and toxicity in your workplace is almost $1 billion a year for US employers, like $914.7 billion every year, just shy of $1 trillion. Just shy of $1 trillion, billions of dollars every year, because people are quitting or they're disengaging at work because of the toxic culture. So I know we're going to get to a solution, because I'm committed to helping people to solve this challenge. And when I say committed, I'm a keynote speaker. I travel the country or in organizations wherever. I don't even have to go across the country. I can do this virtually or in person, but I prefer to do it in a way that really gives you the ability to see how you can stop this from happening, how you can transform your organization to go from toxic to terrific, to go from withered and wretched to world-class. That's what I want for you. That's what inspires me. That's what excites me. That's what motivates me, is to help you turn your organization around, place it on solid ground, and achieve your highest heights in business, in philanthropy, in service, and whatever you do. My job is to help you. I'm industry agnostic. So let's jump right into it. Here are the 5 strategies that I would like to give you today to help you to turn your culture around quickly, to go from toxic to go to a fixed, successful culture that's on an even keel, and that the employees feel that they're in an environment that they want to stay, that they don't want to quit, that they're not afraid of how they're going to be mistreated. So here's the first one. The first one is, as a leader, you need to own the culture starting at the top. Now, I know you might have some departments that are toxic. You may have some teams that are toxic. But if you got toxicity anywhere in your organization, you have to own the fact that this is a leadership problem, not a culture problem. See, I believe what John Maxwell teaches, that everything rises and falls on leadership. The more solid the leadership, the more committed the leadership, the more world-class the leadership team is, the more toxic culture can't thrive and won't exist. But if you have a toxic culture, you need to understand that you're not doing some things right at the top. And so you have to own it. And when I say own it, here is what I'm saying to you. You have to actually acknowledge that you know that your culture is toxic. Like, some leaders refuse to acknowledge it. Like, they think they can just bury their heads in the sand, and that if they don't admit that they got a toxic culture, then things will just go away and get better. That doesn't work. You can't just hide yourself or hide the issue and think it's going to go away. So you have to acknowledge it. So you need to stand up in front of your organization and say, we have some challenges in our culture. Some people might feel like it's toxic. Some people may feel like it's wretched. They feel like it's withered. They feel like it's not the world-class place that they came to work. And I, as your senior leader, own that. That I'm sorry that you're experiencing that. And I want to be transparent around what is happening in our industry, what is happening in our organization. But more importantly, I want to be transparent about what we're going to do to fix it. And then, if there's individuals who are contributing to that toxic workplace culture, and you know the names of these people, you need to hold them accountable. So going back to that example of that healthcare organization where the manager was being toxic and went over and the employee told HR, and the HR reported back to the manager what the employee said. So the manager started to retaliate. You know what accountability looks like? Accountability is getting rid of that manager, and accountability is also getting rid of that employee relations person, because you can't have people staying in roles who are doing toxic things. Now, I'm not saying get rid of them day one, but what I'm saying is you need to catch them red-handed, which you have. You need to write both of them up and coach them and counsel them on what will not be tolerated and what will not be accepted. And that if they do it again, this will be much more than just a counseling, coaching, and write-up session, but we will begin to find you a new opportunity somewhere else, because you can't be a manager here. You can't work in employee relations and fracture the relationship with the employees. So as a leader, you have to own the culture at the top. If you are unwilling to own the culture at the top, then you don't deserve to lead. I'm sorry, you don't. That's step number one. So to fix your toxic workplace culture, strategy number one is to own the culture at the top. That requires accountability, acknowledging the problem, being transparent about the problem, and being transparent about the solutions that you're going to take. Okay? So that transparency about solution builds me to the second strategy. This is where we go to the second strategy. And that is, you have to rebuild trust in your organization, but you only rebuild trust through action. You have to show them better than you can tell them. And what do I mean show them? That if you're going to say that we're going to have a non-toxic culture, we're going to have a world-class culture, you have to tell them what that looks like but then you have to show them what that looks like. So, for example, if you say that we have an environment where employees should feel psychologically safe to report bad behavior, so then you need to put some things in place that demonstrate that employees can be psychologically safe. One of them might be an anonymous tip line for people to report bad behavior. Another one might be for you to create space in meetings for what I call loyal dissent, which is, let's say you're having a meeting to try to solve a problem. And because you're the leader, your team has a propensity to just agree with you, that you have a bunch of yes men and yes women around you. Now, I would tell you that yes men all around you, yes women all around you is a toxic culture, is that people are so afraid to challenge you as a leader or to say anything honest to you as a leader that you get all of the answers that you want because people are doing it to please you, not necessarily to help the organization along the best path. So you have to create loyal dissent. So loyal dissent is you invite someone on your team to be the conscientious objector to any strategy or direction that you want to go, that you create the environment, the psychologically safe environment that people can speak up and say, you know what? I totally disagree with this direction. I totally disagree with the conclusions that they came to on this report. I think we should go in the opposite direction. Nobody should be punished for having that kind of approach in a meeting, that you got to create that psychological safety. And so if you want to rebuild trust, people need to see you inviting that kind of dissent, that kind of healthy conflict in an organization, and not punishing people, not kicking them off of the team or the project because they went into a different direction or they think differently about the work. So you got to show people rather than tell them. You got to show them what a great culture looks like. That's at an individual level, that's at a team level, and as an organizational level. So you only are going to rebuild trust through action by what you do, not what you say. So I'm going to tell you like this. Tell them what you're going to do, then do it, and then show them what you've done. That's how you're going to rebuild trust through action. Now, here's the third strategy. If you really want to fix your toxic workplace culture, I'm serious about this one. If you're not doing anything but watching now, this is where you want to lean in and pay attention to what I'm about to say. The third strategy to fix your toxic workplace culture is to address the DEI divide. There's a huge divide on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And you have to address it as a leader. You can't hide your head in the sand on this one. You can't pretend that it's just going to go away because it is not. So what do I mean address the DEI divide? I just read a study and I found this out in my client population. You got three kinds of organizations right now. And when I name these three kinds of organizations, it's going to help you to see that you got three kinds of people that work inside of each of these three different types of organizations. Organization number one, who never believed in diversity, equity, and inclusion in the first place, and they made a performative statement. They did a performative workshop. They put up a performative website, and they promoted somebody into a performative position to say that they supported DEI. But they really don't. They don't understand it. They don't care to understand it. They're not interested in understanding it. They don't want to build an inclusive workplace. They don't believe in equity and fairness. They don't believe in including people in the decisions. They never wanted anything to do with it at all. This group is a growing population, but it's really small right now. So a third of companies don't want anything to do with DEI at all. The second group, the second third, are people who believe that diversity, inclusion, and equity is a strategic imperative for their business, that they've actually made more money, grew their market share, had a bigger impact, returned more money to shareholders because they have invested their time, their talent, and their treasure into diversity programs, equity strategies, and creating an inclusive environment. We know some companies who are winning because of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Costco being one, Apple being another, Disney being a third. These companies win because they have this as a strategic imperative in their business. So it doesn't matter what lawsuits are being filed or what executive orders are being put in place. They don't care. They know that their fiduciary responsibility is to their shareholders, to their employees, and to their stakeholders invested in their business. So what do? They are doubling down on DEI. They're doing the work anyway. You can sue me, you can hate me, you can not like me, you can do all these other things, but I'm still doing the work. I'm glad to say that there's a solid 25% of companies who are in that secondary space. And here's a third of organizations. These are people who want to believe in DEI, who want to do DEI, but they're more scared of litigation, of being called out, of being sued, of being accused by other groups of people for favoring other groups of people. So they're wishy-washy, right? So they're trying to hide in plain sight. These are the companies who are changing the names and the logos on what they're doing, taking the word diversity out of their programming, removing the word inclusion. They're talking about organizational excellence, and that's fine to do. They still want to do it, but they're, trying to hide in plain sight. These are three different types of organizations along the DEI divide. And inside your organization, you have employees who follow this same framework. Number one, you got employees who don't care about diversity. They don't want anything to do with it. They feel like focusing on diversity is costing them opportunities. So they want the company to stop it and get rid of it and just promote the white men in the company. Those are some people who really do believe that they're work for you right now. And then you have other people who know that they have been winning as a leader in your organization because of how diverse their team is. And they value having a hiring pool that has diverse candidates, racially, functionally, educationally, geographically. They love seeing that diversity come through the door because it gives them more opportunities to get the best talent available to them to be successful at work. You got employees who fit in that box. And then you got the third employee who really wants to do it, but they're just scared of their own shadow. They got a crisis of confidence. That's what they're having right now. And the people with the crisis of confidence, there are ways that you can help them. So let me tell you what you should be doing if you want to bridge the DEI divide, if you want to address it and get across it. Number one, you can't do this with a workshop. You cannot at all. You cannot do this with a mission statement. You can't do this by forming a diversity committee and letting them to performatively meet. You can't do this by hiring a chief diversity officer and giving them a title only, but without budget or positional authority to influence and impact the organization. You got to move beyond intentions and take action. And action happens daily, not in a day. So I'm telling you right now, you have to address the DEI by being action oriented. So the question is, if I go to your company's website and I look at the senior most leadership team, am I only going to see older white males at the top of that page? If it is, you're not doing anything to address the DEI divide. Now, I'm not saying you got to replace people just for the sake of replacing them, but here's what I do know. Executive turnover is at an all-time high right now. So many C-level executives and CEOs are leaving organizations every day, going to work somewhere else. Some are retiring, some are changing positions. With that level of high turnover, you have the opportunity right now to make sure that there's some dimensions of diversity in leadership. You also have the opportunity to make sure that if you hire diverse leaders that fit any demographic of diversity, is to make sure that they're paid on par with their colleagues. If I had $1 for every time that I heard that you might have a C-suite team, and if you look around the table at everybody in the C-suite, that there's salary disparities upwards of 40% for the woman at the table or for the person of color at the table in comparison to everybody else. And they're all peers in the C-suite around the same table, making the same decisions and doing the same type of work for the organization, but you got a 40% pay disparity. That is an inequity. And then the last part of how you got to address it is that you got to create an environment where every voice, every opinion is valued, respected, and included. And see, when I deliver my keynotes on leadership, I talk about the importance of leaders creating spaces to hear from the people on their team. And when I tell some of the stories that I share from stage, I always have people come up to me in the back of the room and tell me, you were telling my story from stage, Anton, that I've been in this organization for 10 years. I've been sitting around a leadership table for 6 of those 10 years. And I can tell you that I've brought ideas to the table that were ignored and dismissed and not even considered until a white guy in the room said the same thing. And when he said the same thing that I did, the CEO looked at them and said, that's a great idea, Bob. We should implement on that. But I said the same thing 6 months ago or a year ago, and nobody listened to me. That person didn't feel included. So you have to address the DEI divide. And you can't do it by a workshop or a mission statement or one committee. That has to be a top-down, inclusive strategy that you have to do every day for a long period of time. That's if you want to fix your toxic workplace culture. Now let's jump to the 4th strategy that you need to do to fix your toxic workplace culture. Very simple. You got to stop leading change like it's a memo. Like, you can't lead change by just following what's on a piece of paper. See, employees won't buy into organizational change or change management if they don't feel like they're a part of the process. Now, what do I mean, feel like they're a part of the process? Excuse me. What I'm saying to you is that people need to feel like change is happening with them, not to them. People need to feel like change is happening with them, not to them, because they're all going to be affected by that change. And people want to know what's going to affect me. How is it going to affect me? Why is it going to affect me? As a matter of fact, what I teach leaders in my change management work, I got a course on change management. It's called 21st Century Change Management for Leaders. It's not really focused on middle management, but how leaders can lead change management. And I really should call it change leadership. But here's the basic point, is that the why is more important than the what, the how, or the when. So when we do change management, we tell people what we're getting ready to do, when is it going to happen, and who is it going to happen to. We tell them the what, the when, the who. We might even tell them how this is going to change. But what we don't really tell them is the why. And we don't take time to explain the why. And when you don't explain the why, you create an environment where people feel like change is happening to them, not for them or not with them. So you got to take time to explain the why. The why is the most important thing. Why are we doing this? Why are we doing it now? Why are we doing this to your team? Why does it have to happen this way? Why does it got to happen at this level? Why we're accelerating the change? I mean, answer all of the whys. Let people ask you why 5 times. Because the more they understand the why, the easier it is for them to buy in to the what. Easier it is for them to accept the how. The easier it is for them to be a part of when it happens. Because if you don't do it this way, then what's going to happen is people are going to resist change. And resisting change is going to cause more conflict. It's going to cause more people to leave. They're going to start revenge quitting. That's a term that y'all need to go Google right now, revenge quitting. That people will quit. They won't just leave. They will come in and spike the ball before they leave. They will quit on purpose and be proud to announce to everybody that I'm quitting and why I'm quitting. Very disruptive. And people are doing that because they feel like change is happening to them, not with them and for them. So you really can't lead change management off of a piece of paper. It starts with human communication, human connection. You got to really, really over communicate in this process. That's strategy number 4. Now, here's the final strategy. And this is one that I am specializing in because this is what my whole business and brand is always about. And that is, if you want to fix your toxic workplace culture, strategy number 5 is to invest in developing leaders. Let me be more specific. Invest in developing the right leaders. It is so important that you develop leaders who know how to lead in a way that creates a positive, world-class workplace culture. So investing in those leaders requires you to spend some money on training and development. The best organizations are really training and development organizations masquerading in their core business. Let me give you a couple of examples. You think Chick-fil-A is in the food and beverage industry, that they sell chicken sandwiches, French fries, lemonade, and sweet tea. You really think Chick-fil-A is in the food and beverage industry? They're not. Chick-fil-A is in the customer service industry, and they spend massive amounts of money training people on how to deliver excellent customer service. It's why every employee, when you say thank you, they say my pleasure. It's almost like a robotic response that if you say thank you, a Chick-fil-A employee is going to say my pleasure. They train that way. They train their employees, they train their managers, they train their owners, they train their operators, they train everybody. They overtrain. And there's no such thing as overtrain because they want to get it right. So I'm telling you, for your business right now, if you promoted people into management roles and haven't provided them adequate leadership development training, you're creating a toxic workplace culture just by putting someone who is a good employee and assuming that they come into the workplace with management skills, that they don't know the difference between IQ and EQ. They think because they're smart and they got a high IQ that they deserve to be a great leader. Well, you can't be a great leader just because you have an high IQ. That means you have the ability to learn. But the question is, do you have a good EQ, emotional intelligence? And do you have a good CQ, which is connection intelligence? See, leadership is about connecting with people, understanding relationships, understanding people in general. So you need to invest in your leaders. You need to develop them, training programs, curriculums, all-day workshops, 2-day conferences. That's all about how they can become better leaders. See, this is what I get hired to speak at organizations about. I was literally just at an IT leadership forum on the West Coast, and the whole audience were leaders in an organization. Some of them were senior leaders. Others of them were first-time leaders. Like before I got on stage, the person who was introducing me, or introducing the introducer, I put it to you that way, asked the entire audience to raise your hand if you're new in a management role. And about a third of the room raised their hand. So a third of the room are new leaders. And so I was privileged to be able to take the stage and to share with these new leaders the keys to be successful as a new leader and as a senior leader. And it comes down to what I call the affinity trinity. These are 3 nonverbal questions that every employee is asking. And that if you learn how to solve the affinity trinity as a leader, you will build a world-class workplace culture on your team and in your organization. So you got to invest in your leaders. So here's my call to action for you. That if your organization has any signs of a toxic workplace culture and you want to address them, then I'm going to ask you to go to antongunn.com/contact. Go to my contact form, fill it out, and let's do a free strategy call on how I might be able to help you to solve your particular challenges. Because I'm giving you blanket framework now that generally works with all organizations, but you might have some particular challenge. So I'm going to close now by going through all 5 strategies to lay out here are the 5 strategies to fix your toxic workplace. Number 1 is to own that the culture starts at the top. It's all about leadership. Everything rises and falls on leadership. Number 2, you have to rebuild trust through actions. What you do is more important than what you say. Number 3, you need to address the DEI divide in your organization. You can't do it overnight. You have to have a long-term commitment to investing in closing the DEI divide. Number 4, you got to stop leading change management like it's a memo and tell people the why before you tell them the what, the how, or the when, or the where. You got to start with why. And I'm not Simon Sinek, but I'm telling you to start with why. And number 5, you have to invest in the right leaders for your organization. So I hope this session has been valuable for you today. I wanted to take a little bit of time because the word toxic workplace culture is so rampant in the news right now, and we're seeing it everywhere. Elon Musk is doing some toxic stuff, and his Doge bros are doing the same thing. There's a lot of places that this is happening, but it's not just in government. This is happening in corporate America, in the nonprofit sector. I can tell you right now, if you work in the nonprofit sector, particularly for a foundation, there is so much toxic culture that is happening right now that we really need to address it, particularly in places that are supposed to be philanthropic and mission-driven and value-driven. They got the big mission statements on their website, and they're doing all of these good grants and giving money away to people, but they're treating their employees like garbage and burning them out and making them want to quit. I got to do something about it. And today I'm giving you a little bit, but my mission every day is try to help people to build that great culture. So I hope this has been valuable. Please, 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 if it has been, I want you to share it with people, and I want you to use this opportunity of sharing this insight to really help people to go to another level. So I'm grateful to have all of you on. I'm glad to have you participating in this session. Lots of great comments, and I really appreciate you all sharing with me today. I'll see you next Wednesday, same bat time, same bat channel, 9:00 East Coast time for Leadership Live with Anton Gunn. Everybody have a great day. Take care.